She was lying on her back on cold concrete, and she was bleeding, and she was the calmest person in the building. The wound in her left shoulder was not mortal. She had established that in the first 3 seconds after she went down. A clinical assessment, rapid and without sentiment, the kind that comes from training so deeply embedded it no longer requires conscious thought. Her left hand was pressed flat against the chest of the man beside her. James Garrett, unconscious. His pulse was weak but present. 40 seconds since he went down, which meant his blood pressure had already dropped past the threshold where most men stop fighting and start dying. Her right hand held the radio handset to her ear. Tango position northeast corner of the structure, she said. Elevation approximately 12 feet. He is using the window frame as a rest. You have a clean line from your current position if you move 4 feet left. Her voice did not shake. Outside, somewhere in the dark beyond the warehouse walls, 3 men heard those words and moved without question. They moved because the voice coming through their earpieces was the steadiest sound any of them had heard in the last 7 hours. Steadier than the gunfire, steadier than the wind coming off the ridge, steadier than their own breathing. The shot came from outside. Silence followed. Then Decker, low and controlled. Target down. We are clear. She closed her eyes for exactly 2 seconds. No more. Then she opened them and went back to work on Garrett's chest and counted his breaths and did not think about the concrete beneath her or the blood soaking through her left side or the 9 hours that had brought her to this floor. She had been here before. Not this building, not this blood, but this choice. The choice between staying and leaving. The choice between the mission and the man. She had made it once, 4 years ago, in a different desert under a different name. She had chosen the mission, she had walked away, and she had lived with that choice every single day since, carrying it like a stone in her chest, smooth and heavy and impossible to set down. Tonight, she had chosen differently. Tonight, she had stayed. The screen faded to black and white text appeared against the darkness. 36 hours earlier, Colonel Marcus Harding woke at 0600 to the sound of an alarm he had set out of habit rather than necessity. His hand reached across the nightstand before his eyes opened, fingers searching for the shape of a bottle that was no longer there. Empty. 4 months sober, 127 days since the review board had recommended his forced retirement. 73 days until it became official. He sat up slowly. The apartment around him was sparse and military neat. A single bed with corners tight enough to bounce a quarter. A dresser with 3 drawers, only 2 of which contained anything worth keeping. A small table near the window where he took his meals alone, looking out at a Virginia skyline that had stopped meaning anything to him sometime around day 90. On the shelf above the dresser, 3 photographs sat face down. He had turned them that way in February and had not turned them back. Some things were easier not to see. The phone on the nightstand began to ring. Unknown number. Harding looked at it without moving. The ringing continued, loud and insistent in the quiet apartment. He did not answer. After 8 rings, it stopped. 8 rings, 30 seconds of silence. Then it rang again. Again. On the 4th attempt, he picked it up and brought it to his ear. Colonel Harding. The voice on the other end was male, calm, and completely unfamiliar. You have one last chance to matter. The line went dead. Harding sat with the phone in his hand for a long time, staring at the screen. The call had come from a number with a Virginia area code, but no name attached. No voicemail, no callback option. Just those 8 words. You have one last chance to matter. He set the phone down and stood and walked to the bathroom and turned on the shower and let the water run hot enough to hurt. He stood under it for 20 minutes, eyes closed, thinking about the last time someone had told him he mattered. It had been a long time. At 1400 hours, he walked into an unmarked office in the Pentagon, Building C, Sublevel 3. The door had no number. The hallway had no windows. The man waiting inside wore a suit that cost more than Harding's monthly pension and had a face designed to be forgotten the moment you stopped looking at it. Sit. Harding sat. The man slid a folder across the table. Manila, unmarked, sealed with red tape that indicated a classification level Harding had not seen in 4 years. Operation Nightfall, eyes only. He did not open it. What is this? The man leaned back in his chair and folded his hands on the table in front of him. His expression did not change. Former CI, a case officer, captured by Sinaloa cartel 72 hours ago. He has information that cannot fall into their hands. You will extract him. 48-hour window. Harding looked at the folder, then at the man. Why me? I am being retired. Exactly. No official connection if this goes wrong. If When you succeed, it stays off the books. When you fail, it never happened. Either way, you are deniable. Harding felt something shift in his chest. A small movement, like a stone turning over in dark water. And if I refuse? The man smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Then you retire in 73 days with nothing to show for 28 years of service, except a signed reprimand and a recommendation that you seek counseling for alcohol dependency. The stone in Harding's chest settled deeper. He opened the folder. The first page was a photograph. A man, 54 years old, gaunt and beaten, sitting in a chair with his hands bound behind him. His face was turned slightly away from the camera, but Harding could see enough. The hollow eyes, the split lip, the particular stillness of someone who had stopped expecting rescue. The second page was a dossier. Name, rank, service history, Ethan Cross, 26 years C, ES Special Activities Division, operational zones spanning 4 continents. Last known location, Nogales, Mexico, 40 miles south of the Arizona border. Harding looked at the name for a long time. Blackwater, November 2020. He had been the case officer. Harding kept his face neutral and turned to the third page. Mission parameters, extraction team of 12 operators. Insertion point along an unmapped border crossing. Approach vector through cartel-controlled territory. Assets secured and extracted within 36 hours or mission abort. What intel does he have? The man in the suit did not blink. Need to know. You do not need to know. Harding closed the folder and slid it back across the table. My team, already assembled. You will meet them at Camp Pendleton tomorrow morning at 0700. One condition. Harding waited. You will take a contractor we assign. Non-negotiable. Why? The man stood. The meeting was over. Because those are the terms. You have 12 hours to decide. If you accept, a car will pick you up at 0500. If you decline, you will never hear from us again. He walked to the door and opened it and paused with one hand on the frame. For what it is worth, Colonel, you were not our first choice. You were our last choice. But you are the only choice left who might actually care whether this man lives or dies. The door closed. Harding sat alone in the room for 17 minutes. Then he stood and walked out and took the elevator to ground level and stepped into the Virginia afternoon and pulled out his phone. He had one message, a confirmation code for a car pickup at 0500. He had not sent a reply. He had not needed to. They had known he would say yes before he walked into the room. Captain Iris Chen walked down the corridor at Camp Pendleton at 0658. She carried a single duffel bag over her right shoulder and wore standard issue fatigues that were slightly too large in the shoulders and slightly too short in the sleeves. Her hair was dark and pulled back without ceremony. Her face carried no expression. She passed a window and stopped. Through the glass, she could see into the briefing room and at the end of the hall. 11 men sat around a table, speaking in low voices, their heads bent over maps and equipment lists. She studied them one by one, cataloging details the way she cataloged everything. Heights, builds, the way they held themselves, the way they looked at each other. Her eyes settled on the man at the head of the table. Colonel Marcus Harding, 59 years old, 28 years Delta Force, Desert Storm, 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan, and 1 signature on a document dated October 28, 2020. There you are. She said it silently to herself in the empty corridor. Then she adjusted the duffel on her shoulder and continued walking. The briefing room door was closed. She did not knock. She opened it and stepped inside, and the room went silent. 11 faces turned toward her. 11 pairs of eyes tracked her movement as she walked to the empty chair at the far end of the table and set her bag down beside it with the quiet efficiency of someone who had performed this action 10,000 times before. She sat. Colonel Harding stood at the head of the table with his hands flat on the surface in front of him. He did not look up. Who sent the intern? Laughter moved through the room. Not loud. These were professionals. But something released. A small exhale of the tension that had gathered when she walked through the door. A man near the middle of the table, broad-shouldered and thick-necked with the build of someone who had spent 20 years carrying heavy loads, leaned 3 inches toward the operator beside him. His name was Diego Reyes, Staff Sergeant, 14 years with the Rangers. He did not say anything, but the look on his face said everything that needed saying. Iris did not respond. She sat with her hands folded on the table in front of her and looked at the map pinned to the wall behind Harding. Sonora Desert, red pin near Nogales, grease pencil notations marking elevation and approach vectors and probable hostile positions. She had seen this map before, not this specific map, but this terrain. She knew it the way some people know the street they grew up on. Every ridge, every wash, every place where the ground dropped away into nothing. Harding pushed back from the table and walked to the corner of the room where his phone sat beside a cold cup of coffee. He picked up the phone and looked at it and set it back down without dialing. Then he turned back to the room. Task Force Phantom. Let us begin. The mission had a name and a clock. The name was Ethan Cross. The clock said 48 hours. Cross had spent 26 years as a case officer for the CIA's Special Activities Division, the part of the agency that existed to do what the agency could not officially do. 54 years old, extraordinarily careful, possessed of the particular patience that comes from spending a career in environments where impatience ends careers in the most literal sense. 72 hours ago, he had been taken from a safe house in Nogales by members of the Sinaloa cartel. Intelligence suggested he was being held at a compound 40 miles south of the border, a former ranch converted into a fortified position with perimeter security and heavy weapons. The file did not say what information Cross possessed. It did not say why the cartel wanted him. It said only that extraction was priority one and that failure was not an acceptable outcome. Harding laid it out in 11 minutes. Terrain analysis, insertion plan, rules of engagement. He spoke without notes, his voice flat and controlled, the voice of a man who had delivered 1,000 briefings and knew that the details mattered less than the certainty with which they were delivered. When he finished, he looked around the table. Questions. They came in order. About the compound layout, about Cross's physical condition, about backup protocols and communication channels, and what happened if the asset was already dead when they arrived. Nobody asked about Iris, not directly. But when Harding assigned roles and said Chen, forward medical, the pause that followed was not nothing. Reyes's jaw moved slightly. A man named James Garrett, 29 years old, team corpsman, cleared his throat. Iris wrote her assignment in a small notebook she had brought and said 2 words. Yes, sir. She offered nothing more. The first test came 40 minutes later. Harding appeared in the equipment bay while Iris was conducting inventory and said without preamble that he needed a forward treatment station established in the adjoining bay. Full setup, ready for mass casualty intake. 20 minutes. Then he left. The adjoining bay was 50 feet of bare concrete with 3 folding tables stacked against one wall and a drain in the center of the floor that smelled of motor oil and old water. Iris looked at it for 4 seconds. Then she began. She moved without wasted motion. The tables arranged themselves into the configuration she had memorized from a field manual she had first read at 15 and reviewed every year since. Intake, treatment, stabilization. The layout designed for a single operator working without support. The medical kit opened and sorted itself onto clean surfaces in logical sequence. Triage tags fanned in a row. 3 CAT tourniquet units sat at the front of the primary table, left side where the hand finds them without looking. IV tree assembled. Fluid bags pre-hung. Airway management tray laid out with laryngoscope and endotracheal tubes organized by size and secured with Velcro strips. She paused at the suture kit. Her hand hesitated over the needle driver for exactly 2 seconds. The hesitation was not visible to anyone watching, but it was there. A flash, brief and involuntary. A different room, stone walls, dim light. A man on a table with a massive wound across his abdomen and blood pooling on the floor beneath him, and her hands inside his chest cavity, fingers searching for the bleeder while someone shouted instructions she could barely hear over the sound of her own heartbeat. A voice, male, calm despite the chaos. Steady hands, Iris. Steady hands save lives. The flash ended. She grabbed the needle driver and placed it in position and did not hesitate again. She finished the setup in 16 minutes. Harding returned with Garrett at his side. They walked the length of the station without speaking. Harding checked the tourniquet placement, the IV configuration, the airway tray. He picked up instruments and set them down. He opened supply drawers and closed them. He found nothing out of place. He picked up the needle driver and held it at an angle to catch the light. There was a microscopic residue of blood in the hinge mechanism. Old blood, dried and dark. This is dirty. Iris met his eyes. That is from yesterday. I used it in the field. You are not in the field. You are in my equipment bay. Then give me an alcohol wipe. They looked at each other across the table. The silence stretched. Garrett handed her a wipe without being asked. She cleaned the instrument in 10 seconds and handed it back. Harding set it down. A checklist is not a firefight, Captain. Iris did not blink. Neither is an inspection, Colonel. Harding walked out. Garrett remained for a moment, looking at Iris with an expression that was difficult to read. Then he leaned close enough that only she could hear. You have got balls. Iris began repacking the kit. I have got skills. Balls are optional. Later in the armory, Iris was checking her personal gear when Staff Sergeant Reyes walked in and stopped when he saw her standing near the corner of the room where the team's Barrett M82A1 rifle sat in its case. Do not touch that. You are a medic. Iris did not turn around. I am touching a table. You know what I mean? No, explain. Reyes moved closer. He was 6'2" and 220 pounds, and he carried himself with the unconscious authority of someone who had spent 14 years making younger men do what he told them to do. That rifle weighs 30 pounds, 50 caliber. Recoil breaks bones. Iris turned and looked at the Barrett, then at Reyes. I have seen smaller women handle bigger recoil. Name one. Me. Reyes laughed. Not cruelly, just the automatic response of someone hearing something they found genuinely absurd. Lifting is not shooting. Iris reached down and lifted the Barrett out of its case with one hand. Not struggling, not straining, just lifting, with proper balance and perfect economy of motion, the way someone lifts something they have lifted many times before. She set it back down. Her thumb unconsciously found the trigger guard and rested there for exactly 1 second in the precise position of someone who had been trained on this weapon system to the point where the training had become reflex. Then she released it and walked toward the door. Reyes stared after her. From the doorway, a voice spoke quietly. Did you see that? Reyes turned. Lieutenant Sarah Voss stood in the shadows near the entrance. 51 years old, 19 years in Navy SEAL support operations, most of them in intelligence and surveillance. She had a way of watching things that looked like not watching, a visible absence of attention that was in fact its opposite. See what? Voss looked at the Barrett, then at Reyes. Nothing. Never mind. She walked out. Reyes stood alone in the armory for a long time, looking at the rifle case, trying to understand what had just happened and why it made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The convoy moved south out of Camp Pendleton at 2100 hours. 3 unmarked vehicles running on roads that followed the contour of the land rather than the logic of any civilian map. California gave way to Arizona the way night gives way to deeper night, not with announcement, but with gradual accumulation. Iris sat in the second vehicle, rear passenger seat, kit between her feet, hands folded, eyes tracking the darkness outside the window. Elevation changes, sight lines, where the terrain opened and where it closed, the quality of cover on either side of the road. Reyes sat in the front passenger seat and did not speak to her. This was not unusual. Reyes rarely spoke in vehicles unless they were taking fire, but the quality of his silence had a deliberateness to it, a man working through something unresolved. She had felt his eyes in the rearview mirror twice in the last hour. Both times she had been looking out the window and had given him nothing to work with. 36 hours, that is all I have. She thought it but did not say it. 36 hours to find Cross, to get the file, to confirm what she already knew, but could not prove without documentation that would stand up to official scrutiny. Cross has the file. The file has the names include. She stopped herself. Some thoughts were dangerous even in silence. Reyes turned around in his seat and looked at her directly. You ever been in combat, contractor? Yes. Where? Cannot say. Classified? No. Classified means it existed, but you cannot know. This never existed. Reyes studied her face. She gave him nothing, no tension, no defensiveness, just the flat neutrality of someone stating a fact. JSOC. Iris looked out the window. Keep guessing. SARC pipeline. She did not answer. Reyes turned back around. The silence that followed was different than the silence before. Heavier, weighted with the things he was thinking but not saying. In the vehicle, Harding sat in the passenger seat with a tablet open on his lap, reviewing the terrain maps for the 14th time. The driver, a young operator named Chen, who shared no relation to Iris despite the name, kept his eyes on the road and his mouth shut. Harding's phone buzzed. Radio check. All calls signs respond. One by one, the responses came through. Reyes actual, solid copy. Garrett, copy. Voss, copy. 4 more operators checked in. Standard protocol, confirming communication integrity before crossing into hostile territory. The last call sign did not respond. Harding waited 5 seconds. Hawk, radio check. Silence. Captain Chen, respond. The radio crackled. Hawk actual, solid copy. Her voice was calm, unhurried, as if she had been waiting for him to ask twice. In the vehicle behind him, Reyes leaned toward his radio. Who gave her a call sign? Voss, sitting in the third vehicle, responded quietly. She already had one. Harding filed that information without comment. He closed the tablet and looked out at the desert passing in the darkness and thought about the last time he had crossed this border. November 2020. Operation Blackwater. He had been JSOC liaison. He had signed the non-acknowledgment protocol. He had sent 6 men into the Sonora Desert with orders that if they were compromised, extraction was not authorized. 5 days later, all 6 had been declared killed in action. Bodies not recovered. Files sealed under Special Access Program classification. He had requested an internal review. He had been told no review would be authorized. He had asked again. He had been told to stop asking. So he had stopped. And for 4 years, he had carried the weight of that stopping, smooth and heavy, like a stone in his chest. The convoy crossed the border at 23:40 hours at a point 20 miles west of any official checkpoint. There were no lights, no guards, just a gap in the fence that had been cut hours earlier by an advance team and would be repaired hours later by the same people who had cut it. They drove for another hour on dirt roads that appeared on no map and stopped at a staging point 9 miles from the target coordinates. Gravel lot, abandoned vehicles, the skeletal remains of a structure that might once have been a border patrol station. The desert night was cold and clear, and the stars were dense and indifferent and very old. The team moved without flashlights. Harding assembled them in a loose circle and spread the map on the hood of the lead vehicle. 12 faces in the darkness, 12 pairs of eyes reflecting ambient starlight. The source is inside. Former CIA analyst. Worked with Cross for 7 years. Made contact 3 days ago through a DIA intermediary. Says he has location intelligence. Says he wants a conversation that will not be recorded and will not officially occur. What is his angle? Voss asked. Unknown. Could be genuine. Could be a setup. Reyes spoke without looking up from the map. We do not know what is at that position. Could be 20 hostiles. Could be 200. Harding nodded, which is why we go in light. Recon first. If it smells wrong, we abort. He looked around the circle. Garrett, you are primary medic. Hawk, you are secondary. You stay with Garrett unless I call you forward. Clear. Clear. The approach took 40 minutes. They moved in a loose column through terrain that offered minimal cover, each operator maintaining spacing and sight lines, weapons low and ready. The compound emerged from the darkness gradually, the way structures do in open desert. Low buildings, corrugated steel, rust and peeling paint. No lights, no movement. Harding raised a fist and the column stopped. Through night vision, the compound resolved into 3 distinct structures. A main building with 2 stories, an equipment shed, a covered loading platform that had partially collapsed on one side. 8 guards visible on perimeter. Voss, give me positions. Voss was 400 meters behind them on an elevated ridge with a scope and a radio and 19 years of experience identifying threats in darkness. 2 on the main door. 3 mobile patrol, southwest perimeter, 2 static north fence, 1 elevated loading platform. Harding traced a finger along the approach road. Elevated guard has line of sight to our approach. Affirm. He is our problem. Can you take him? Negative. Angle is wrong from my position. I would need to reposition and that burns 10 minutes. Harding looked at the compound, at the spacing between structures, at the narrow window of time between now and when the mobile patrol would complete their circuit and be in position to see any approach from the east. We do not have 10 minutes. Behind him, Iris spoke quietly. I can get to him. Harding turned. Explain. There is a drainage culvert. North side, 3-foot diameter. Exits inside the compound perimeter 20 feet from the loading platform. How do you know that? I have been here before. When? 6 months ago. Medical contract. Cartel boss's son. Gunshot wound. The silence that followed was absolute. Reyes broke it. You worked for the cartel. Iris looked at him in the darkness. I worked for money, like everyone else. She moved forward until she was next to Harding and pointed at the map she had memorized hours ago. North approach. Through the culvert. Unmapped. Only guards who know about it are dead. How convenient. You want easy extraction, or do you want to make a point? Harding looked at her for 5 seconds, then at Voss, then back at Iris. We will recon both approaches, fall back to staging point, reassess. He turned to move and Iris put a hand on his arm. Colonel, we do not have time for recon. The source said Cross is being moved tomorrow. If we wait, we lose him. Harding looked down at her hand on his arm. She removed it. That is not your call, Captain. It is if you want this mission to succeed. Harding felt something shift in his chest. the stone turning over again in dark water. He looked at Voss. Voss nodded, almost imperceptibly. Harding turned back to Iris. You have 30 minutes. Miss a check-in, we come loud. Understood. She switched her radio to a discreet channel and started moving before he could change his mind. Reyes stepped close to Harding. Sir, this is insane. Noted. Iris moved through the darkness like someone who had moved through darkness before and knew that speed was less important than silence, and silence was less important than patience. She found the culvert exactly where she remembered it, 3 feet in diameter. Concrete. Dry. She crawled 60 feet in absolute blackness with no night vision and no light, navigating by touch and memory and the particular sense of direction that comes from doing something enough times that the body remembers even when the mind does not. Voices above her. She stopped. 2 men, speaking Spanish, one of them laughing at something the other had said. Did you hear? They are moving the American tomorrow. Where? Do not know. Boss's orders. The voices moved away. Iris lay in the culvert and processed what she had just heard. Tomorrow, which meant tonight was the last chance. She continued forward and emerged inside the compound perimeter 20 feet from the central building. 3 guards visible. She had already planned her route, shadow to shadow, timing her movement to the patrol patterns she had memorized 6 months ago and was gambling had not changed. Guard 1 turned. Iris was already behind cover. Guard 2 walked his route. Iris crossed 10 feet behind him, using his footsteps to mask her own. Guard 3 lit a cigarette. The flare of the lighter created a bloom of light that lasted exactly 2 seconds. Iris used those 2 seconds to move from one doorway to another, invisible in the glare. She was inside the building before the lighter went out. Stone walls, the smell of mildew and blood and fear. She keyed her radio. Hawk to actual, I am inside. Copy. 25 minutes remaining. The interior was exactly as she remembered. A narrow stairwell with no railing. A second-floor corridor with 4 doors. She climbed slowly, testing each step before committing her weight, moving with the unhurried precision of someone who understood that rushed movement created noise, and noise created death. Second floor. 4 doors. Behind the 3rd door, she heard coughing. She opened it slowly. The room was empty except for a cot. On the cot, a man, beaten, bandaged, barely conscious. Ethan Cross. Iris crossed the room and knelt beside him. Mr. Cross, I am here to extract you. Cross opened his eyes. They were unfocused at first. Then they found her face and something changed in them. Who sent you? Does it matter? Yes, if you are CIA, I am already dead. I am not CIA. Cross stared at her. His eyes moved across her features, searching for something. I know you. No. Yes, you look like. He reached into his pocket with a trembling hand, pulled out something small, pressed it into her palm, a USB drive. Take this, guard it. Do not let them have it. What is it? Everything. The explosion cut him off. Outside the building, the night erupted into fire and noise and chaos. The distinctive crack of automatic weapons fire, shouting in Spanish, the heavier thump of something larger detonating near the compound's east fence. Harding's voice came through her earpiece, urgent and controlled. Hawk, we have movement. 20+ hostiles, heavily armed. They knew we were coming. Iris pressed the USB drive into the pocket of her vest and pressed herself against the wall and looked out the window. The compound was flooding with cartel soldiers. Too many, moving too fast, organized. This was not a reaction. This was a response. They had been waiting. A second explosion, closer this time. The building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling in thin streams. Cross grabbed her arm. They are demolishing the building. With us inside. Iris looked around the room. No windows large enough to climb through. One door which opened onto a corridor that was almost certainly filling with armed men. No secondary exit. Harding, we are trapped. Get out, now. Negative, no exit available. A third explosion, massive, directly above them. The ceiling began to collapse. Iris threw herself over Cross as the world came down. Concrete and rebar and chunks of structural support crashing into the space where they had been standing. The impact drove the air from her lungs. Something heavy hit her left shoulder, and she felt the specific wrongness that meant damage, the kind that would need attention later if there was a later. Dust everywhere. Darkness. The sound of settling debris. She could not see, she could not breathe, but she could feel Cross beneath her, still moving, still alive. She keyed her radio with her right hand. Her left arm was not responding correctly. Actual, building is coming down. Hawk, Iris, respond. Static. The radio was dying, or she was dying, or both. She pressed the transmit button one more time. Actual. Package is alive. I am going to get him out. Then the darkness took the rest of the sound, and there was nothing but the weight of concrete and the taste of blood and the slow, steady rhythm of her own heartbeat, counting down the seconds she had left. Darkness had weight. Iris Chen lay beneath 2 tons of concrete and discovered this truth in the most immediate way possible. The weight pressed down on her back, on her legs, on the left shoulder that was already screaming with pain from whatever had struck it during the collapse. Each breath required negotiation with the debris field above her, a careful expansion of the ribs that shifted rubble in ways she could not predict. Beneath her, Ethan Cross was making a sound. Not words, just a low, continuous noise that meant consciousness and pain in roughly equal measure. She moved her right hand. It responded, fingers flexing, palm pressing against concrete dust that had once been sealing. Her left arm hung at an angle that felt wrong but not catastrophically so. Functional. Barely. Assess. The word came from somewhere deep in her training, a voice that was not hers but had become hers through repetition and necessity. The voice of every instructor who had ever stood over her during the SARC pipeline and demanded that she separate emotion from evaluation, that she treat her own body as just another patient requiring clinical judgment. Shoulder bleeding, Cross unconscious, trapped under estimated 2.3 tons concrete, no immediate extraction options, oxygen supply limited by debris density, time until hypoxia approximately 9 to 12 minutes depending on exertion level. She moved her right hand across his neck, found the pulse, weak but present, 60 beats per minute, lower than ideal but within survivable parameters. Her right hand found the pocket of her vest. The USB drive was still there. She could feel its hard edges through the fabric. Everything. That was what Cross had said. Everything was on that drive. "Mr. Cross, wake up." No response. She slapped him. Hard. The way you slap someone when their life depends on them being conscious, and politeness is a luxury you cannot afford. Cross gasped. His eyes opened in the darkness and saw nothing because there was nothing to see. What? What happened? Building collapsed. We are trapped. Can you move? He tried. The scream that followed told her everything she needed to know about his left leg before he said the words. Pinned. Cannot feel anything below the knee. Do not move it. I will get you out. How? She did not answer because she did not have an answer. She had training, and she had willpower, and she had a right arm that still functioned, but what she did not have was leverage or light or any visible path through the debris field that would allow her to move a 180-pound man with a crushed leg through gaps barely wide enough for her own body. What she had was 9 minutes of oxygen and a choice. Stay and die with him, or leave and live without him. She had made this choice before. 4 years ago in a different desert under a different name. She had chosen to leave. She had chosen the mission over the man, and that choice had followed her through every day since, a weight she carried that was heavier than any concrete. Not again. She keyed her radio with her right hand. Actual, this is Hawk, sit rep. Static. Actual, respond. More static. Then a voice, distant and broken by interference. Hawk, this is Actual, what is your status? Marcus Harding stood in the open ground 40 meters from the collapsed building with his weapon raised and his heart doing things in his chest that felt too fast and too hard. Around him, the compound was chaos. Automatic weapons fire from 3 directions. The distinctive crack of cartel AK variants mixing with the heavier thump of American M4s. Tracers drawing lines through the darkness like angry geometry. But he was not looking at any of that. He was looking at the pile of rubble that had been a 2-story structure 60 seconds ago and was now a grave. Reyes was beside him, weapon up, scanning for threats. Sir, we need to pull back. We are outnumbered 4 to 1. Harding did not move. They are still alive. Sir, I said they are still alive. Lieutenant Voss's voice came through the radio from her overwatch position 400 meters behind them. I am picking up weak signal. Iris's radio still transmitting. Harding closed his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. When he opened them, he was somewhere else. Not here in this Mexican desert in 2024, but in a different desert in 2020. Not with this team, but with a different team. Not making this decision, but making a different decision that had led to 6 men dying and 4 years of nights when sleep came late and left early. A voice on the radio, distant, afraid. Actual, we are compromised. Request immediate extract. And his own voice responding. Younger then, more certain. Following orders because Orders were what you followed when you wore the uniform and saluted the flag. Negative. Mission is abort. You are on your own. Sir, we have wounded. Those are your orders. Harding out. The radio had gone silent after that. Forever silent. And for 4 years he had told himself that he had been following protocol, that the non-acknowledgment order had been signed by people above his pay grade, that he had been a tool in someone else's hand, and tools do not carry guilt. But tools also do not wake at 3 in the morning with the taste of shame in their mouth. Tools do not reach for bottles they no longer keep. Tools do not count days of sobriety like they are counting down to something that might eventually feel like forgiveness. He opened his eyes and the desert was back, and Reyes was looking at him with an expression that said he knew exactly where Harding had just been. Harding keyed his radio. "Hawk, this is actual. Sit rep." The response came back broken and faint. "Trapped. Second floor. Central building. Cross has broken leg. Building unstable. Can you move?" "Not with Cross. Too heavy. Passage too narrow." Harding looked at the rubble pile, at the cartel soldiers taking positions around the compound perimeter, at his own team pinned down and taking fire from positions they could not effectively suppress. Every tactical bone in his body said abort. Every regulation he had ever learned said cut your losses. Every successful operation he had ever run had succeeded because he knew when to pull back and when to push forward, and this moment was screaming pull back with a voice that could not be ignored. He looked at Reyes. "Then we come to you. 15 minutes. Hold position." Reyes stared at him. "Sir, the compound." "I am not asking." Reyes, suppressing fire from east. Garrett, demo charges on west fence. "Voss, find me a path." The team moved, not because they agreed with him, not because the tactical situation supported the decision. They moved because he was the commander and they were the team. And in the space between those two facts, there existed a thing called trust that was more important than tactics or regulations, or the small voice in every one of their heads saying this is how good men die for bad reasons. Reyes opened fire on the eastern positions. Controlled bursts, 3-round groups, not trying to kill, just trying to make the cartel soldiers remember that shooting back had consequences. James Garrett ran to the western fence line with a satchel of C4 charges and the particular expression of a man who had done this before and knew exactly how loud it was going to be. Voss, from her position on the ridge, scanned the collapsed building through thermal imaging and looked for heat signatures that would indicate spaces large enough for human bodies. There, her voice was calm, professionally detached, the voice of someone who had learned long ago that emotion in combat gets people killed and detachment keeps them alive. North stairwell, partially collapsed but not fully blocked. I am reading 2 heat signatures. Second floor, east corner. Harding began moving before she finished the sentence. Garrett, blow it. The explosion was not large. It did not need to be large. It needed to be precise. A shaped charge against a specific section of wall that would create an opening without bringing down what remained of the structure. The blast rolled across the compound like thunder. The north wall of the building blew outward in a spray of concrete and rebar. Harding and 3 operators rushed through the gap before the dust settled. Inside was darkness and the smell of pulverized stone and something else. Blood, old and new. The building had been a place of suffering long before tonight. Harding switched on his weapon light. The stairwell was there, half buried, but there. He started climbing. Iris heard the explosion through 6 feet of concrete and 200 pounds of debris. Felt it more than heard it. A pressure wave that made the rubble shift in ways that were either salvation or death depending on which direction it shifted. The weight on her back decreased by approximately 30 pounds. Not enough to move freely, but enough to breathe without negotiating. She keyed her radio. Actual. Did you just blow something up? Affirmative. North wall. We are coming to you. Cross beside her made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had contained any humor. They are going to die trying to save us. Yes, that is a bad trade. Iris adjusted her position slightly, testing which directions allowed movement and which directions resulted in more concrete pressing down. She found 6 inches of lateral space to her right. She used it. That is not your decision to make. Above them, she heard voices. American voices. Harding shouting coordinates. Garrett responding. The sound of rubble being moved by hand, one piece at a time. The slow excavation of people who were buried. She closed her eyes and did math. At current rate of debris removal, accounting for structural instability and the need to avoid secondary collapse, estimated time to reach her position was 18 to 22 minutes. Cartel response time to the explosion and subsequent firefight was approximately 6 minutes ago and counting, which meant Harding and his team had 12 minutes, maybe less, before they were overrun by numbers they could not suppress and firepower they could not match. She opened her eyes. Mr. Cross, when they reach us, you are going first. He turned his head in the darkness. She could not see his face, but she could hear the confusion in his voice. You are wounded. I can walk. You cannot. Triage is simple. He was quiet for a moment. You are not what I expected. What did you expect? Cross did not answer right away. When he did, his voice carried something she had not heard before. Recognition. I expected someone who looks like Victor Martinez, because you do. Same eyes, same way of speaking. Economy of words. Iris went very still. I do not know who that is. Yes, you do. The sound of digging above them grew louder. Harding's voice cutting through, closer now. Hawk, can you hear me? She keyed her radio but did not take her eyes off the darkness where Cross's face would be if there was light to see it. Copy. We are here. 5 minutes. Stay still. Cross spoke quietly, only to her, not to the radio. He made me promise. 4 years ago, when I pulled him out of that valley, if his daughter ever came looking, I was to help her, no matter the cost. Iris felt something in her chest compress. Not pain, something else. The thing you feel when a door you have been pushing against for years suddenly opens and you are not ready for what is on the other side. I do not have a father. Everyone has a father. Mine is dead. Cross turned his head back toward the ceiling they could not see. No, he is not. The digging sound stopped, then started again, faster, more urgent. Harding's voice through the radio. 30 seconds. Be ready to move. Iris pressed transmit. Cross goes first. He cannot walk. Broken leg, maybe worse. Negative. You are wounded. You go first. That is not how triage works, Colonel. Hawk. Sir, with respect. I know what I am doing. Get Cross out. I can manage. The silence on the other end lasted 3 seconds. Copy. Light appeared above them. Not daylight. Weapon-mounted flashlights cutting through gaps in the debris. Then hands, reaching down, pulling away chunks of concrete that had been sealing. A face appeared in the gap. Reyes, covered in dust, bleeding from a cut above his left eye, looking down at her with an expression that was equal parts relief and fury. You are insane. Noted. Get Cross. 2 more operators appeared. Between the 3 of them, they created an opening large enough to extract a man. Cross screamed when they moved him, the kind of scream that means bone grinding against bone. But he was out, up and through the gap and into hands that carried him toward the blown-out north wall. Then Rhea's hand was reaching down for Iris. Your turn. She grabbed it with her right hand. Her left arm was not cooperating. The shoulder was damaged in ways she would need to assess later. Reyes pulled. She pushed with her legs. The gap was barely wide enough, but barely was enough. She emerged into a space that had been a hallway and was now a disaster. Harding was there, weapon up, scanning for threats. When he saw her, he lowered the weapon slightly. Can you walk? Yes. Prove it. She stood. The world tilted. She corrected for the tilt. Took 2 steps. They were not good steps, but they were steps. Satisfied. Harding did not smile, but something in his face changed. Let us go. The extraction was not clean. Extraction never is when you are moving through a collapsed building in hostile territory with wounded personnel and a force ratio that favors the enemy by a factor of 4. But it was functional. Reyes and another operator carrying Cross. Barrett providing immediate medical stabilization. Harding on point. Iris somewhere in the middle. Moving on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. They reached the blown-out north wall. Outside was fire and noise. The compound had become a battlefield. Cartel soldiers firing from prepared positions. Task Force Phantom returning fire from positions that were not prepared and were barely positions at all. Just operators using whatever cover the terrain provided and making every round count because ammunition was finite and the enemy was not. Voss's voice came through the radio, calm, detached, professional. You have approximately 90 seconds before they flank your position from the south. After that, your exfil route is cut off. Harding keyed his radio. All units, fighting retreat. Rally point Alpha, move now. The team moved, not running. Running gets you killed, but moving with purpose, firing and displacing. 3-round bursts and then relocate. The basic mechanics of staying alive when the situation is designed to make you dead. Iris stumbled. Not because of the leg was fine, but because the shoulder was screaming now, And screaming takes bandwidth, and bandwidth is what you use to keep your balance when you are moving across uneven terrain in the dark while people are shooting at you. A hand caught her arm. Harding. He did not say anything, just kept her upright and kept moving. They reached the perimeter fence. Garrett had already blown a hole in it 30 seconds ago. The team poured through. Cross first, carried between two operators. Then the others, one by one, counting off. Harding was last. He turned at the gap and looked back at the compound, at the building they had just destroyed getting into and then destroyed getting out of, at the bodies that would be found there when the sun came up and someone decided to count the cost. 6 men had gone into a desert in 2020 and none of them had come back. Tonight, 13 had gone in and all 13 were coming out. The math was not perfect, but it was better. He turned and ran. Behind him, the compound disappeared into darkness and distance. Ahead of him, the team was loading into vehicles that had been pre-positioned by support personnel whose names he did not know and would never know. Cross was already in the lead vehicle, Garrett working on his leg with the focused intensity of someone who knew that the next hour would determine whether that leg stayed attached. Iris was leaning against the second vehicle, still standing, still conscious, but only barely. Harding reached her. "Get in. I am fine. You are bleeding. It is not that bad." He looked at her shoulder, at the blood soaking through her fatigues, at the way she was holding herself that said the damage went deeper than the surface. "Get in the vehicle, Captain. That is an order." She got in. The convoy moved north, fast, not trying to avoid detection because detection was guaranteed, just trying to put distance between themselves and the response force that would be organizing right now and would be coming with numbers and equipment that would make the compound fight look like a skirmish. They drove for 40 minutes. The safe house was exactly what the name suggested. A structure in the middle of nothing, surrounded by more nothing, accessible by roads that appeared on no map. It had been a ranch once, before the cartels, before the wars, before the desert had reclaimed everything that was not actively defended. Now it was 4 walls and a roof and a generator that ran on fuel delivered by people who did not ask questions. The team unloaded. Cross was carried to a cot in what had been a bedroom. Garrett set up a medical station with the efficiency of someone who had done this in worse conditions. I know fluids, antibiotics, pain management. The leg was broken in 3 places, but the brakes were clean and there was no arterial damage. He would walk again, eventually. Iris sat on a different cot in a different room and let Garrett look at her shoulder after he finished with Cross. The wound was deep but not critical. A piece of rebar had gone through the muscle and exited clean. Painful, debilitating, but survivable. Garrett cleaned it and packed it and wrapped it and gave her pills she did not take because she did not trust her body to process medication correctly when it was running on adrenaline and spite. "You need to rest. I need to talk to Cross. You need to rest." She stood. The world tilted again. She corrected again. "Where is he?" Garrett pointed. She walked. Cross was awake when she entered, lying on the cot with his leg elevated and splinted and looking at the ceiling with the expression of someone who had just survived something they had not expected to survive and was trying to process what that meant. He turned his head when she entered. "Captain Chen." She closed the door behind her. "You said you know me." "I said you look like someone I know." "Who?" Cross was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of something he had been carrying for a long time. "Victor Martinez, Navy SEAL, killed in action, November 15th, 2020. Operation Blackwater. Except he was not killed. I pulled him out of that valley. I falsified his death certificate. I hid him for 4 years." Iris stood very still. "Where is he now?" "Safe, hidden, but not for long." "Why?" "Because the people who tried to kill him once are trying again. And this time they know I helped him." She moved closer to the cot. "The file. The one you gave me in that building. What is in it?" Cross looked at her. Really looked at her, seeing something in her face that confirmed what he had already guessed. "You are not here for me. You are here for him. Answer the question." "The file contains documentation on 31 American service members, special operations, Tier 1 assets, all declared killed in action between 2015 and 2023. Except 13 of them are not dead. They are in detention. Black site, run by our own government. Why? Because they knew too much about a program they were not supposed to know about. So someone decided the easiest way to handle the problem was to make them disappear." "What program?" Cross closed his eyes. "Shepherd Protocol, illegal rendition, enhanced interrogation, black site detention on American soil, all of it sanctioned at levels high enough that the paper trail does not exist, and the people who gave the orders have names you will never learn. Iris felt something cold move through her chest. Victor Martinez discovered this. Yes, he tried to report it. They tried to kill him instead. I was the case officer on the ground. I had 40 minutes to decide whether to file the official report that would have gotten us both killed or to do something else. What did you do? I chose something else. She looked at him for a long time. Number 17 on that list, Victor Martinez. Yes. Is he alive? Cross opened his eyes. As of 3 months ago, yes. She stood with that information for exactly 5 seconds. Then she turned and walked out of the room and closed the door behind her and stood in the hallway with her back against the wall and her eyes closed and her breathing very carefully controlled. She had known. For 4 years, she had known with a certainty that lived below evidence and above hope in the place where truth resides before it becomes provable. But knowing and hearing it confirmed were different things. And the difference had weight. She opened her eyes. Marcus Harding was standing at the end of the hallway watching her. How long have you been there? Long enough. He walked toward her. When he was close enough that they could speak without the others hearing, he stopped. Victor Martinez was on my list. I know. You knew before you volunteered for this mission. Yes. You manipulated the assignment, got yourself attached to my team specifically. Yes. Harding's jaw tightened. Do you know why Martinez was left behind? I know a JSOC liaison signed a non-acknowledgment protocol on October 28, 2020. I know that protocol removed extraction authority for his team. I know 6 men went into the Sonora Desert 3 days later and only 1 came back. Who was the liaison? You were. The silence that followed was absolute. Harding looked at her. She looked back. Neither of them moved. I did not know which team it was for. I believe you. But you are here anyway. I am here because I need a sworn statement from someone with institutional authority. Someone whose signature on a document carries weight. Someone who can create an official record that changes the calculus for the people who would prefer Victor Martinez remain officially dead. Harding absorbed that. You used me. I used the mission. You were part of it. He turned away from her, walked to the window, looked out at the desert darkness. Do you know what it is like to carry the weight of that signature? To wake up every day knowing that you sent men to die because you followed orders without questioning them. To reach for bottles you no longer keep because the only thing worse than remembering is trying to forget. His voice was quiet, controlled, but under the control was something raw. I know what it is like to leave someone behind. Harding turned back. Who? The same person you left. Just in a different desert, under a different set of orders. She met his eyes. I was there, in that valley. November 2020, I was SARC attached to his team. When the position was compromised and you denied extraction, I was the one who walked out alive. I was the one who left him bleeding in the dirt because the mission required someone to carry the intel, and he ordered me to go, and I followed orders the same way you followed orders. Her voice did not shake. So yes, Colonel, I know exactly what that weight feels like. I have been carrying it for 4 years, and I am tired. The room was very quiet. Harding looked at her and saw something he had not seen before. Not a contractor, not a medic, not even an operator. Just a person who had made the same choice he had made and had lived with it the same way he had lived with it and was standing here now trying to unmake it in the only way that seemed possible. He walked back to her. What do you need from me? A sworn statement. Everything you signed, everything you were told, everything you should have questioned but did not. On record, official. And you think that will protect him. I think it will make killing him more complicated than keeping him alive. And in that complication, there is space for extraction. For a long moment, Harding did not respond. Then he nodded once. You will have it? He turned to leave and stopped. The others? The 13 who are still alive. Where are they? I do not know. Cross knows. But he is not going to tell us unless we have a plan to extract all of them. Harding looked back at her. 13 men, across how many sites? Unknown. Cross said the locations are in the file. The file you have. Iris reached into her vest pocket, pulled out the USB drive, held it up. Yes. Harding looked at the small device. Then we need to see what is on it. They found Voss in the main room with her laptop. She took the drive without question and plugged it in. The screen filled with folders, documents, photographs, testimony transcripts, and a list. 31 names, 31 photographs, 31 death certificates. Harding leaned over Voss's shoulder and read, Name 17. Captain Victor Martinez, Navy SEAL, KIA November 15th, 2020. Operation Blackwater, Sonora Desert, body not recovered. Below the death certificate was another document. Location, status, medical notes. Alive. Relocated July 2023. New identity, current status, unknown. Harding looked at Iris. It says unknown. It was updated 3 months ago. He could have been moved since then. Or he could be exactly where this says he was in July. Where? Voss scrolled down. The coordinates resolved to somewhere in Montana, near the Canadian border. How far? 800 miles. Harding was quiet. Iris reached past Voss and scrolled through the rest of the list. 13 names had green markers. Living, locations listed, facilities identified. 3 in Arizona, 2 in New Mexico, 4 in Nevada, 3 in Montana, 1 in Wyoming. She looked at Harding. We cannot extract 13 men from 5 different states. Not without help. What kind of help? Harding pulled out his phone, started to dial, stopped. The kind that might get us all killed. Who are you calling? Someone who owes me, or I owe him. I have never been sure which. He completed the call, put it on speaker. The voice that answered was calm, professional. Harding, I was wondering when you would call. Harding looked at Iris. I need an upload. Secure server, Senate Armed Services Committee, DOJ, DOD, FBI, and press. The voice was quiet. What are you uploading? Everything. How big is everything? 31 American servicemen who were declared dead but are not. 13 still alive. Documentation, testimony, locations. Another pause. You are burning a lot of bridges, Marcus. I am burning the right bridges. When do you need it? Now. Voss ejected the drive and held it up. Harding took it. Upload initiating. Stand by. Voss's fingers moved across the keyboard. The file began transferring to an encrypted server whose location Harding did not know and did not need to know. Progress bar appeared. 1%, 2%. Estimated time, 43 minutes. Harding looked at his watch. We have 43 minutes to plan the rest of our lives. 20 minutes into the upload, Iris's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message. A photograph. Victor Martinez, bound, blindfolded, sitting in a chair in a room with stone walls. Timestamp, 4 hours ago. Below the photo was text. We have him. 12 hours to deliver cross in the file. Coordinates to follow. Come alone or he dies. Iris stared at the photo. Harding saw her face. What? She held up the phone. Harding took it. Looked at the image. His expression did not change, but something behind his eyes did. This could be fake. It is not. How do you know? Because I know what his hands look like. And those are his hands. Cross's voice came from the doorway. He was standing there on one leg, using the doorframe for support. It is real. I recognize the room, the original black site, where I held him after extraction, before I moved him. Harding looked at him. You said he was safe. I said he was hidden. Safe and hidden are not the same thing. How did they find him? I do not know, but I know who took him. Who? The same person who sent you on this mission. The same person who wanted me extracted. The same person running Shepard Protocol. Harding felt something cold in his stomach. Who is that? Cross looked at him. I do not know his real name. His operational call sign is Shepard, but I have heard his voice. Pentagon briefings, conference calls, always the same voice. The man who briefed me. Yes, Harding stood very still. He set me up. He set both of us up. This entire operation. Extract me. Attach Iris to your team, all designed to draw out everyone who knows about Shepard Protocol and eliminate them. Reyes spoke from across the room. We are all targets. Yes, and the 12-hour deadline. Time to position a kill team. Time to prepare an ambush. Time to ensure none of us leave. Iris stepped forward. Then we do not go. Victor dies. She looked at Cross. You said there are 13 men still alive. Where are the other 12? The file has the locations. But you need more than locations. You need a plan. You need resources. You need... The laptop beeped. File upload complete, 100%. Voss turned the screen. Senate Armed Services Committee received. DOJ received. DOD received. FBI received. Associated Press, New York Times, Washington Post received. She looked at Harding. Shepard Protocol is now public knowledge. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Harding's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Speaker. A voice. Calm. Almost pleasant. Colonel Harding, you have exceeded expectations. Who is this? You know who this is? Shepard, if you prefer. What do you want? I want you to deliver Cross in the file. 6 hours. Coordinates uploading now. The file is already public. A pause. Then you have given me no reason to keep Victor Martinez alive. Wait. Silence. Bring me Cross. I will give you Martinez. Simple trade. The file is distributed. You have already lost. The voice laughed. Have I? The file proves nothing without testimony. Living testimony, which is why I still need those 13 men. You will never have them. Then Victor Martinez dies. And so does everyone on your team. How? Because I know where you are. I have known since you crossed the border. I have been tracking you since Camp Pendleton. The line went dead. Harding looked around the room. We move, now. Where? Anywhere but here. They loaded vehicles in under 3 minutes. Cross carried by 2 operators. Gear thrown into trucks. No ceremony. Just the mechanical efficiency of people who understood that speed meant survival. As the convoy pulled away from the safe house, Iris looked back. In the distance, headlights. Many headlights, coming fast. Harding saw them too. How far to the border? 40 minutes if we push it. We push it. The vehicles accelerated into the desert night, and behind them the headlights grew closer, and ahead of them was nothing but darkness and the hope that darkness would be enough. The coordinates came through at 0200 hours, a set of numbers that resolved into a location 40 miles east of their current position. Deep desert, no roads, no structures visible on satellite imagery, just empty land that had been empty for 1,000 years and would be empty for 1,000 more. Unless you knew where to look. Marcus Harding stood over the map table in the safe house and studied the terrain with the focused intensity of a man who understood that the next 6 hours would determine whether 13 men lived or died, and whether the last 4 years of his life had meant anything at all. Ethan Cross sat across from him, leg elevated, face gray with pain that medication was only partially managing. Between them, the map showed elevation lines and approach vectors and kill zones marked in red. It is underground. Harding looked up. How do you know? Because that is where I would put it. Old Cold War installation, built in the 50s when we thought the Russians were coming. Decommissioned in the 90s. Sold to private contractors in the 2000s when someone decided black site detention was easier if the sites were not officially government property. How many entrances? 2 that I know of. Main access through ventilation shaft disguised as geological survey station. Secondary emergency exit through tunnel surfacing 300 meters west. Guards, unknown. When I ran the operations there, we maintained rotation of 8, but that was 4 years ago. Harding traced his finger along the approach route. If we come in from west through emergency tunnel, we avoid main entrance entirely. Cross shook his head. Tunnel has sensors, motion, thermal, seismic. You trigger them before you get within 50 meters. So we go loud from start. You go loud, they execute prisoners and collapse facility. Scorched earth protocol. I wrote it myself. Harding straightened. Then we do not go loud. Cross looked at him. You just said we avoid tunnel because of sensors. We avoid tunnel. We do not avoid going underground. How? Harding turned to the team assembled around table. 12 faces looking back at him. 12 operators who had voted to walk into trap because walking into traps was sometimes what the job required. Voss, can you hack sensor grid? Lieutenant Sarah Voss looked up from laptop she had been working on for 90 minutes. Her eyes were red from screen glare and lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. Not remotely. System is air-gapped. No network access. I need physical access to control panel. Where is control panel? Inside facility. So we need to get inside to disable sensors that prevent us from getting inside. Voss almost smiled. That is the problem, yes. Iris Chen spoke from a corner of room where she had been standing for 20 minutes, silent and still watching planning process with detached focus of someone conserving energy for what came next. There is third entrance. Everyone turned. Cross stared at her. There is no third entrance. Yes, there is. I designed that facility. I know every entrance. You designed it in 2018. I was there in 2022. They added maintenance shaft for new generator system. Eastern perimeter, 15-foot vertical drop. No sensors because it was installed after your security grid went live. How do you know this? Iris met his eyes. Because I used it. The room went very quiet. Cross leaned forward, studying her face. You were inside that facility. Yes. When? Iris did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice carried something that had not been there before. Not emotion exactly, but shape of emotion. Outline of something held carefully in check. July 2023. Medical emergency. One of detainees. Cardiac event. They needed surgeon. I was available. I did work. I left. You saw prisoners. I saw one prisoner. The one whose chest I opened. The one whose heart I restarted. The one who woke up 3 days later and told me his name, even though I told him not to. What was his name? Victor Martinez. Harding absorbed that information in silence. Then he turned to Voss. Can you create diversion? Something that pulls their attention away from Eastern Perimeter for 10 minutes. Voss thought about it. I can crash their power grid. They have backup generators, but there is 45-second gap during switchover. 45 seconds of darkness. Is that enough? Iris stepped forward. It is if we are already in position. Harding looked at her. You and I, through maintenance shaft. While they are distracted, we reach control room, disable sensors. Rest of team comes through tunnel. What about prisoners? We extract them during chaos. All of them. 13 men, 1 trip. That is impossible. Iris did not blink. So was getting out of that building. We did it anyway. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Reyes cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, you are asking us to infiltrate hardened facility with unknown hostile strength based on intelligence from someone who was inside one time 2 years ago for medical procedure. Yes, that is insane. Also, yes, Reyes looked around table, at other operators, at Voss, at Garrett, at Iris standing in corner with wounded shoulder and absolute certainty. He looked back at Harding. When do we leave? 0400, 2 hours. The team dispersed to prepare. Weapons checks, ammunition counts, medical supplies staged for rapid access. The mechanical rituals of people who knew that ritual was sometimes all that stood between calm and panic. Harding found Iris outside sitting on hood of one of vehicles looking at stars with expression he could not read. He sat beside her. They did not speak for a while. Finally, Harding broke silence. You have been planning this for 4 years. Yes, since the day you walked out of that valley. Since the day I left him bleeding in dirt and told myself it was because mission required it, and mission was more important than one man. Was it? Iris turned her head and looked at him. No, Harding nodded slowly. I told myself, same thing. About signature, about non-acknowledgment protocol, that I was following orders and orders were more important than men who followed them. He was quiet for a moment. I was wrong. So was I. They sat in darkness, and between them was weight of every choice they had made and every consequence those choices had carried, and every night they had spent wondering if there was a way to unmake what had been done. Iris spoke quietly. After tonight, one of 2 things happens. We get them out, all of them, and Shepherd Protocol becomes historical footnote, and 13 men go home. Or we fail and everyone dies and story dies with us. Harding looked at stars. I have made peace with second option. Have you made peace with first? He turned to her. What do you mean? If we succeed, if we bring them home, if Victor Martinez walks out of that facility alive, what happens to you? I stand trial for everything I did to get him out. Court-martial, dishonorable discharge, everything. And you are fine with that. Harding smiled. It was not happy expression, but it was genuine. Captain, I have been carrying weight of that signature for 4 years. If standing trial is price for setting it down, I will pay it gladly. Iris studied his face. You are a better man than you think you are. I am a man who sent people to die because I did not ask enough questions. Better is relative term. She looked back at stars. He told me something once. Victor, when I was 16 and thought I knew everything and was angry at world that had given me nothing. He said being good is not about never making mistakes. It is about what you do after you make them. What did you do? I joined Navy. I became SARC. I learned to save people because I could not save ones who mattered when I was young. And now I get to save one who mattered most. Harding stood. 2 hours. Get some rest. I do not sleep before operations. Neither do I. He walked back toward a safe house and left her sitting on hood, looking at stars counting down, minutes until choice became action, and action became consequence, and consequence became only thing that mattered. They left at 0400 in 3 vehicles running without lights across terrain that had no roads and needed none. Desert was flat here. Empty. The kind of empty that makes you understand how small you are and how indifferent universe is to whether you live or die. Harding drove laid vehicle with Iris beside him. Neither spoke. There was nothing left to say that had not already been said. Behind them, rest of team followed in tactical spacing. Reyes and Garrett in Vehicle 2, Voss and remaining operators in Vehicle 3. 12 people moving toward facility that officially did not exist to extract 13 people who officially did not exist from custody of program that officially had never happened. They stopped 3 kilometers from coordinates and continued on foot. Desert at night is not quiet. It is full of small sounds, wind moving over sand, Distant cry of something hunting or being hunted. Whisper of your own breathing inside your skull. Harding heard all of it and none of it. His focus had narrowed to mission, to plan, to next 10 steps and 10 steps after that, and all steps that would follow until they either succeeded or failed, and failure meant everyone died. Voss moved up beside him. Geological Survey Station is 200 meters northeast. I am reading thermal signatures. 4 bodies, armed. Just 4, unless they have people underground who are not generating enough heat signature to register. Harding processed that. The maintenance shaft, where, Iris pointed, 50 meters east of main structure, covered with steel plate, locked from below. Can we breach it quietly? She pulled small device from pack. Thermal lance, battery-powered, silent. I can cut through in 3 minutes. Harding turned to team. Voss, you are on power grid. Wait for my signal. When it goes dark, you have 45 seconds to get everyone in position at tunnel entrance. Understood. Reyes, you are primary extract. Moment sensors go offline, you move. 13 prisoners. Get them to surface. Get them mobile. Get them out. Reyes nodded. Garrett, you are medical. Assume they are all in poor condition. Assume injuries. Assume malnutrition. Plan accordingly. Already planned, sir. Harding looked around at faces in darkness. This is suicide mission. I will not pretend otherwise. But it is also right mission. And sometimes that is all you get. He checked his watch. 60 seconds. Move. Team dispersed. Harding and Iris approached maintenance shaft from east, staying low. Moving slow, using every depression and terrain for cover. Shaft was exactly where she said it would be. Steel plate 3 feet in diameter, flush with ground, and locked with mechanism that looked simple but was not. Iris assembled thermal lance without making sound. Device came to life with soft hum, barely audible over wind. She pressed it against lock housing and began to cut. Harding scanned perimeter with night vision. Survey station was visible 200 meters away. 4 heat signatures. 2 stationary. 2 mobile. Standard guard rotation. Bored men doing job they had done 1,000 times and expected to do 1,000 more. They had no idea this was their last night. Lock gave way with soft click. Iris lifted plate. Below was darkness and ladder descending into nothing. She looked at Harding. 15 feet. Then corridor. Then stairs. Then control room. You have been here before. Twice. He did not ask why twice. There were some questions that did not need answers. She descended first. Harding followed. Ladder was cold metal under his hands, and air coming up from below smelled of concrete and recycled ventilation, and something else. Fear. Old fear. Kind that soaks into walls when people are kept in places they do not want to be. They reached bottom. Corridor, dimly lit, empty. Iris moved forward without hesitation. She knew this place, had memorized it, had walked these halls in her mind every night for 2 years. They reached junction, left or right. She went left, 30 feet. Door, unmarked. She tested handle, locked. Harding pulled small pry bar from kit, inserted it into gap between door and frame, applied pressure. Lock was residential grade, not designed to stop determined operator with right tools. It gave. Inside was control room, banks of monitors showing camera feeds from throughout facility, computer terminal, breaker panel on far wall. No guards. Iris moved to terminal and began typing. Her fingers moved with mechanical precision of someone executing sequence they had practiced 1,000 times in their head. Harding watched monitors. 12 screens, 12 different views. He saw guards in common area, saw empty corridors, saw storage rooms and equipment bays in what looked like medical facility. And then he saw cells. 12 men, 12 separate rooms, each one sitting or lying on cot, each one thin, each one carrying particular stillness of people who had stopped expecting rescue and had made peace with never leaving. His throat tightened. Iris kept typing. Sensor grid, motion thermal seismic, all running through to this terminal. I can disable them, but it will trigger alarm at main security station. We will have approximately 2 minutes before they respond. 2 minutes is enough. Do it. She entered final command. Nothing happened. Then everything happened. Alarms began screaming throughout facility. Red lights strobed. Monitors went dark, then flickered back to life, showing emergency lighting and guards scrambling. Iris keyed her radio. Sensors are down. Move now. Voss responded immediately. Power cut in 3, 2, 1. Lights went out. 45 seconds of absolute darkness. Harding switched to night vision and moved. Iris was already at door weapon up, clearing corridor. They ran, not toward exit, towards cells. First cell they reached was empty. Second held man, late 50s, gray hair, thin, sitting on edge of cot with hands folded, listening to alarms not moving. Harding opened cell. "We are American military. We are here to extract you. Come with us now." Man looked at him, blinked, then stood on legs that shook but held. "How many of you?" 13. "We are getting all of you." Man almost smiled. "About time." They moved to next cell. And next, each time, same sequence. Open, identify, extract. Some men could walk, some could not. Those who could not were carried by those who could. By time they reached 8th cell, emergency lighting had come back on. By time they reached 10th cell, they heard boots on concrete, running, shouting, guards responding to breach. Iris turned to Harding. "We have 3 more. You get these 10 to surface. I will get others." "No, we stay together." "Sir, we do not have time to argue." "I am not arguing. I am giving you order. We stay together." She looked at him for 2 seconds, then nodded. They ran. 11th cell held man who was unconscious. Fever, infection, breathing shallow. Garrett would need to see him immediately or he would not make it to surface. 12th cell held man Harding recognized from file. Captain James Morrison, Delta Force. Declared KYA in Afghanistan in 2019. He stood when door opened and his eyes were clear and sharp. "Who are you?" "Colonel Marcus Harding, Task Force Phantom. We are extracting you." Morrison looked past him at chaos in corridor, at other prisoners stumbling toward freedom, at Iris reloading weapon with calm efficiency. "Where is Martinez?" Harding felt something cold move through him. "What?" "Victor Martinez. Is he with you?" "No, we are here to extract him, cell 13. Morrison shook his head. "There is no cell 13. They moved him 3 weeks ago, said he was being transferred." "Where?" Morrison met his eyes. "I do not know, but I heard them talking. Guards. They said someone wanted him isolated, someone high up, someone who wanted to ask him questions personally." Harding turned to Iris. She had gone very still. "He is not here." Her voice was flat, empty. "We were too late. They moved him." For a moment, she did not move, did not speak, just stood in corridor with weapon in hands, in wounded shoulder, in absolute certainty, crumbling into something that looked like end of world. Then Rhea's voice came through radio. "Sir, we have problem. Main entrance is sealed. Blast doors, 3 inches of steel. We cannot breach." Harding keyed radio. "Secondary tunnel, also sealed. And we have hostiles moving in from north. At least 20. We are about to be surrounded." "Emergency tunnel, the one Iris used. Is it still open?" "Negative. Collapsed. Recent. Looks like they dropped charges specifically to close it." Harding looked at Morrison. "Is there another way out?" Morrison thought for 2 seconds. "Ventilation system. Main shaft runs vertically through center of facility, exits at surface level. But it is 60-foot climb and shaft is only 3 feet in diameter. Can 13 men climb it?" Morrison looked at other prisoners, at man who was unconscious, at others who were barely standing. "Some of us can, not all. Then those who can climb help those who cannot. We are not leaving anyone." Morrison almost smiled. "I was hoping you would say that." They moved through facility with organized chaos of people executing plan that was falling apart but had not yet completely collapsed. Prisoners who could walk supported those who could not. Garrett administered stimulants to those who were fading. Iris moved point-clearing corners, dropping guards with precision shots that did not waste ammunition because ammunition was finite and mission was not yet complete. They reached ventilation shaft. Morrison was right. 60 feet straight up. Steel ladder rungs welded to side, 3 feet in diameter, barely wide enough for man with pack. Harding looked up, looked at 12 men who needed to climb, looked at Iris. "You go first. Establish security at top. We send prisoners up one at a time. I come last." "No, Captain." "Sir, with respect, your shoulder is fine. Mine is not. I cannot climb with one arm. I can cover exit while you get them up. Then you pull me. That is not. It is only option that gets everyone out alive. You know it." She was right. He did know it. He did not like it, but he knew it. "Go." Climb took 11 minutes, each prisoner ascending slowly, some faster than others, some stopping halfway to rest, some pulled from above when strength gave out. Morrison went up 5th, strong enough to climb but weak enough that he needed someone below him in case he fell. Unconscious man went up 7th, tied to Reyes back with paracord and dead weight all way. Garrett went 9th, medical pack on shoulders, already planning triage before they reached surface. By time 11th man was climbing, Iris could hear boots coming down corridor behind them. Guards, many guards, responding to breach with focused urgency of people who understood that heads would roll if prisoners escaped. She took position behind support pillar and waited. They came around the corner in tactical stack. Professional, trained, moving with coordination of people who practice this. She fired twice. Lead man went down. Second man went down. Stack collapsed. Return fire filled corridor. Rounds sparking off concrete. Ricochets whining past her head. She made herself small behind pillar and counted rounds and waited for pause that always came when people emptied magazines. Pause came. She broke cover and fired 4 times. 4 guards dropped. Others retreated. She keyed radio. How many left? Harding voice came back, strained with effort. 60 seconds. She reloaded her last magazine. 30 rounds. She checked a corridor. No movement. But she could hear them. Regrouping, coordinating, coming with more numbers and more firepower. 30 seconds. Movement at far end of corridor. Not guards, something else. Man stepped into view. Alone. Unarmed. Wearing suit that cost more than her annual salary. Face calm. Expression neutral. He stopped 50 feet away. Captain Chen. She kept weapon trained on him. Who are you? You know who I am. You have been hunting me for 4 years. Shepard, if you prefer. Where is Victor Martinez? Safe, for now. Bring him here. Man smiled. That is not how this works. Then how does it work? You have 12 prisoners. I have 1. Trade. She did not move. No. Smile widened. You would leave him. Again. This is different. Is it? You are still choosing mission over man. Still walking away. Still carrying weight. Iris felt something tight in chest. Something that had been there for 4 years and was now pulling itself apart. File is public. Shepard protocol is over. You have already lost. Man shook his head. File proves nothing without testimony. And testimony requires witnesses. Living witnesses. Which is why I need those 12 men in my custody. You will never have them. Then Victor Martinez dies. Tonight. While you listen. He pulled out phone, held it up, pressed button. Voice came through speaker. Weak, strained, but unmistakable. Iris, if you are hearing this, do not trade. Get them out. Leave me. Victor. Man lowered phone. You have 60 seconds to decide. 12 men for 1. Simple math. From above, Harding voice on radio. All prisoners secure. Come up now. Iris looked at man in suit. At phone in his hand. At corridor behind him where more guards would be coming. She made choice. She ran. Not toward man. Toward shaft. She reached ladder and began climbing one-handed. Pain screaming from shoulder. Left arm useless. Right arm pulling her weight and gravity and pack on back. Below her man spoke. Predictable. Then he turned and walked away. She climbed. Above her hands reached down. Harding hands. Pulling. She grabbed on and let him pull in world tilted and she was at surface in cold desert air with stars above and 12 men sitting on ground breathing freedom for first time in years. Morrison was beside her. Martinez. Iris shook her head. They have him. Somewhere else. Where? I do not know. Morrison looked at her, saw something in face, understood. We will get him. How? I know someone who might know where they took him. Someone who was inside program. Someone who got out. Who? Morrison stood. General William Harding. Marcus Harding, brother. Desert went very quiet. Marcus Harding turned slowly. What did you say? Your brother. William. He was part of Shepard Protocol, ran operations from within Pentagon. I saw him twice when they moved me between facilities. He is one who signed detention orders. Marcus Harding stood very still. My brother died in 2017. Morrison shook his head. Your brother faked his death in 2017. He has been running Shepard Protocol ever since. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Harding pulled out phone. Dialed number he had not called in 7 years. Number that had been disconnected when his brother died. Number that should not exist. It rang. Voice answered. Hello, Marcus. Harding closed his eyes. William. Surprised. Where is Victor Martinez? Voice on other end side. Still trying to fix your mistakes. Still thinking that saving one man will balance books. Answer question. William was quiet for a moment. I am going to give you choice, Marcus. Same choice I gave you 4 years ago when I put that non-acknowledgment protocol in front of you. I did not know it was your protocol, but you signed it anyway, without reading, without questioning, because following orders was easier than asking why. Harding said nothing. Victor Martinez is alive. For now, he is in Facility 1 control. You can have him in exchange for 12 men you just extracted. No, then he dies. And you spend rest of life knowing you could have saved him and chose not to. There has to be another way. There is not. 12 men for one. You have until sunrise. After that offer expires. Line went dead. Harding stood with phone in hand and looked at 12 men sitting on ground. Men he had just pulled out of hell. Men who had spent years in detention because someone decided they knew too much. Men who deserved to go home. And one man, still in custody, still waiting, still trusting that someone would come. Stone in his chest turned over. He looked at Iris. She was standing at edge of group, looking east where sun would rise in 90 minutes. She turned to him. I am going after him. Alone, if necessary. Harding walked to her. You do not know where he is. I will find him. How? I do not know yet, but I will. Harding looked at 12 men. At Morrison, at Reyes and Garrett and Voss and others who had walked into hell with him and walked out again. He looked back at Iris. We did not leave them behind. We are not leaving him behind either. Sir, we do not even know where. Morrison spoke up. I might. When they moved me last year, I overheard coordinates. Did not understand them at time. But if William Harding is running operation, he would use facility close to Washington. Close enough to maintain control. Far enough to maintain deniability. He pulled out scrap of paper from pocket. Coordinates written in faded pencil. This is what I heard. Harding looked at numbers. Ran them through GPS on phone. That is 80 miles from here. And we have 90 minutes until sunrise. Then we move fast. Sir, Reyes stepped forward. The men, they need medical attention. They need extraction. They need us to finish what we started. Get them to rally point. Get them secure. We will bring Martinez. Reyes looked at him. You are going to assault federal facility with no intelligence and no backup and no time. Yes, that is suicide. Harding looked at 12 men. At faces of people he had signed paper to abandon. At opportunity to make different choice. Maybe, but it is right choice. He turned to team. Reyes, you are in command. Get these men out. Contact Senate committee. Get them protection. Get them testimony. End this program. Sir, that is order. Reyes stood at attention. Yes, sir. Harding turned to Iris. You, me, Voss, Garrett, we go get Martinez. Iris looked at him. Why? Because 4 years ago I signed paper that left him to die. Tonight I signed different paper. What paper? One that says no one gets left behind. They drove east into dawn. 4 people in one vehicle, weapons, ammunition, no plan except to reach coordinates and bring Victor Martinez home. Facility was there, just as Morrison had said. Old military installation converted into private use. Secure, isolated, perfect for people who needed to disappear other people. They parked 2 kilometers out and approached on foot. Voss scanned with thermal. 8 guards, 2 at main gate, 4 roving, 2 stationary inside main building. Where would they keep prisoner? Below ground. Always below ground. Harding checked watch. 40 minutes to sunrise. We do not have time for subtle. We go loud. We go fast. We get Martinez and we leave. Voss looked at him. Sir, this is suicide mission. I know, and you are doing it anyway. Yes, she nodded. Then let us make it count. They hit facility like lightning. Precise, brutal, overwhelming. Garrett dropped first 2 guards with suppressed shots. Voss breached main door with shaped charge. Harding and Iris cleared interior with mechanical efficiency of people who had done this before and knew that hesitation meant death. They found stairs going down. They descended into darkness. At bottom was corridor. At end of corridor was cell. Inside cell was man. Victor Martinez, 58 years old, gray hair, thin, beaten, but alive. He looked up when door opened. His eyes found Iris. For a moment, neither moved. Then she crossed space between them, and he stood, and they held each other away. People hold each other when 4 years of absence collapses into one moment, and words are not sufficient for what needs to be said. He pulled back, looked at her. You came. I never stopped looking. He smiled. It was tired and worn, but it was real. I know. Harding stood in doorway. We need to move. Now. Victor looked at him. Something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, acknowledgement of 2 men who had both signed papers they regretted and were both trying to unmake what had been done. Thank you. Harding nodded. They ran. Extraction was chaos. Guards pouring in from multiple directions. Fire and return fire. Voss providing cover while others moved. Garrett taking around a vest that knocked him down but did not keep him down. They reached surface. Vehicle was there. They loaded and moved, and behind them facility erupted with activity, but they were already gone racing west into rising sun. Victor sat in back seat with his daughter beside him, and his hand in hers and his eyes closed. You should not have come. I had to. You risked everything. Yes. He opened eyes and looked at her. Thank you. She did not let go of his hand. 3 months later, Marcus Harding stood in Senate hearing room in suit he had not worn in 4 years. Room was full. Cameras, reporters, senators who had read file and knew what it meant. He testified for 6 hours. He told them about signature, about non-acknowledgment protocol, about choice to follow orders without questioning them. About 4 years he spent trying to forget and shame that followed him through every bottle he did not drink. He told them about decision to go back, to extract prisoners, to finish what should have been finished 4 years ago. When he was done, committee chair leaned forward. Colonel Harding, you violated orders. You conducted unauthorized military operations. You assaulted federal facilities. You extracted prisoners without proper authorization. Yes. Do you regret your actions? Harding met his eyes. I regret signature from 4 years ago. I do not regret what I did 3 months ago. Even knowing consequences, especially knowing them. Chair was quiet for a moment. Dishonorable discharge, loss of pension, no federal employment, but given extenuating circumstances and testimony of 13 men you extracted, no prison time. Gavel came down. Harding stood and walked out of hearing room and removed uniform jacket for last time. Outside, Iris and Victor were waiting. Victor extended hand. Thank you, Colonel. Harding shook it. Just Harding now. Iris handed him envelope. Job offer. Veterans Affairs. They want you to run new program, combat trauma counseling. I am disgraced. You are experienced. There is difference. Harding opened envelope, red letter inside. He looked up. What about you? Iris smiled. SARC instructor. Camp Pendleton. Teaching next generation how to drag people out of hell. And Victor. Victor put arm around his daughter. Going home, finally. They stood on courthouse steps and watched sun set over Washington and thought about choices they had made and people they had saved and cost of redemption. It was not small cost, but it was worth it. 6 months later, in small cabin in Montana, Victor Martinez worked in garden while Iris sat on porch and read letter that had arrived that morning. Letter was from Harding. It was short. Program is running. 12 men enrolled. All of them veterans. All of them carrying weight. We are helping them set it down. Thank you for showing me it was possible. She folded letter and looked at her father and thought about Valley, where she had left him, and choices she had made, and 4 years she had spent trying to unmake them. Some choices cannot be unmade, but some can be balanced, and sometimes that is enough. Sun set over mountains and world turned toward night, and in gathering darkness she heard phone buzz. Message from Voss, new mission. When you are ready. She looked at message for a long time. Then she typed 2 words. Send coordinates. Stone in her chest, smooth and heavy for 4 years, shifted. Not gone, but lighter. Enough to carry forward. Enough to keep moving. Enough to live. The hardest part of writing this story? Choosing who walks away. When Colonel Harding stood over those 12 rescued prisoners and had to decide, trade them for one man or risk losing everyone, I realized something. There's no right answer, just the answer you can live with. What would you do? 12 strangers who trusted you, or the one person you failed 4 years ago? Drop your take below, and if this story hit different, there are more coming. The subscribe button saves your spot. Your storyteller.